Stellar Blade's combat can be punishing for a lot of players because of its souls-like elements, specifically Sekiro Elements, so I figured out that the best guide to make now is a combat guide. I'm the Samurai and I will be breaking down Stellar Blade's combat key elements and its flow, proper skill usage, which attack combinations to use, and more. As a Souls-like enthusiast, I will also provide more gameplay tips to help you adjust to Stellar Blade's demanding combat quickly, especially if this is going to be your first Souls-like title, and ultimately enjoy the game. Thanks to the demo, this guide was made possible since it let us access a pretty much an advanced version of Eve, where the majority of the key skills were already unlocked. I will still be making an advanced guide in the future, but for now, all the things that you will be learning here are enough for you to adjust and master Stellar Blade's combat. Let me quickly touch upon the basics first so we can solidify the elements before moving on to the advanced stuff. Of course, you have your health bar, and when it reaches 0, the game is over. Pretty straightforward. And next is beta energy. Treat beta energy as your skill gauge, and you need this energy to perform skills in combat or other special moves. Moving on to shield, this is the bar located underneath the HP bar. While the shield is active, you will be mitigating incoming damage. Once it's gone, of course, you will be receiving a lot of damage, so keep this in mind. The next important thing is the rechargeable tumbler count on the side. This is your Estus flask or primary recovery item that can replenish your health. When the basic battle parameters are out of the way, let's move on to essential combat maneuvers. Starting with the most important aspect, which is parry and blocking. Blocking enemy attacks will drastically reduce incoming damage, however, you will be suffering from chip damage. Now if you time in your blocks perfectly just before an attack hit, you will instead perform a parry. At this early, I would like to set the expectation that you are expected to perfectly parry every enemy attack in this game, just like in Sekiro. Have this mindset and you will go far as early as now. As much as possible, you will be perfect parrying every enemy attack since you can reap a lot of rewards from it, and perfect parries are heavily incentivized in this game. Parries will let you gain beta energy and you will not suffer any damage from enemy attacks, and you will be able to reduce your enemy's balance, and upon depleting it, you will perform a retribution attack, also known as a critical strike in other Souls-like titles, which deals tons of damage. Moving on to normal attacks, you can juggle between light and heavy attacks. Square attacks are light attacks that are speedy but deal less damage, while you've guessed it, triangle attacks are slower but deal more damage. Now Eve can perform different combos when combining both types of attacks, and I will provide my recommended combo for the beginners later on. So the next one is evading or dashing attacks. When pressing the circle button, you will performing a short range dash, and pressing the circle button again, you will be able to perform a follow-up cartwheel. You will notice right away that dashes in this game feel limited in some way. It is because it is following the formula of Sekiro. Dodging attacks or pressing the circle button is just another part of the overall combat mechanics and not your primary way of surviving attacks. Parry is king in this game, so keep this in mind. Next is mastering the gap closing skill, which is the rush skill. When you hold the triangle button, Eve will close her gap to the target by dashing towards the target, following up with an attack. I cannot stress how important this skill or move is, makes the whole combat fluid, and you will deal tons of damage since you will always be in toe-to-toe with bosses in this way. You can also do a follow-up attack by pressing triangle again, doing blinks or countering blue attacks. When the enemy emits a blue glow, it means that you need to do a blink maneuver to counter it. Wait for your sword to emit the same glow and move the left analog stick forward and press circle at the same time. It will blink and teleport to the enemy's blind side so you can strike back. Each of the counter elements here have some kind of follow-up attack, so it is advisable to learn how these counter attacks works, and you will deal an extra damage every time you do it. Doing repulse or countering purple attacks. Repulse, on the other hand, enemies will emit a purple glow, and the same thing with blinks. Once the enemy does a purple attack, move the left analog stick down this time and press circle. It will usually move away from enemies by somersaulting, and this is the time the players can pull off some kind of range attacks, which I will discuss more later on. Yellow attacks is the last special attack on the list, so when the enemy glows yellow, you need to dodge these attacks by dodging at the right time. When you do it successfully, Eve's bodies will turn red, and immediately press triangle to do a powerful follow-up attack. Moving on to skills, and in this section, I will be explaining the proper usage of each basic skill in the demo. We were lucky to get access to really good skills already, and it is possible that we can access more on the actual release. But in my opinion, these skills already perform well and can carry you in the entire game if utilized properly, so mastering them now will provide you value. The first skill on the list is quadruplet, a multiple heavy thrust attack that hits like a truck and can easily be used in combat thanks to its quick wind-up time. You can use this almost anytime you wish as long you have the beta energy. I usually use this if I want to stop a boss from doing an attack, or use it as a combo finisher after doing regular attacks from Eve or after gap closing to the target, and it does damage the enemy balance as well, making this skill a very good one. Shield Breaker, as the name implies, is perfect for enemies with shields, and you can easily guard break them with this, and enemies without shields can be stunned when hit by this skill. I rarely use this skill unless I need to, but it is just a matter of preference. While Shockwave, on the other hand, is one of my most used skills, especially when dealing with mobile bosses. This can immobilize targets outside from your melee range, so when I use this, I can pull off a multiple shockwaves to gap close to the target and continue dealing with normal attacks and skill. Lastly would be the Crescent Slash, which is a very powerful slash, and it is advisable to fully charge it to deal the most damage possible. However, since it needs times to be charged, do not use this skill like out of nowhere unless you are sure that you will hit the enemy first before they get into you, or else you will be wasting your precious beta energy by getting hit. So what I usually do is use a fully charged Crescent Slash after doing a quadruplets or any other skills to stun the enemy first and connect the Crescent Slash 100% of the time. But before anything else, if you are into straight to the point guides or just love Japanese role-playing games or RPGs in general, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and it will surely help me a lot. Join our Discord server as we are building an empire where you can find like-minded people who love the genre. Now back into the video. When the basics are out of the way, it is time for more gameplay tips that will solidify the elements that we talked about and improve your gameplay tremendously. Tip number 1 is always do follow-up attacks if you can. This is pretty straightforward, and we've learned that when dodging special attacks by performing repulse, perfect dodge, blink, and also rush or gap closing to targets, you can always do a follow-up attack. Master each follow-up attack and you will have a smoother and fluid gameplay compared to just relying on strafing or running. Just always remember that gap closing will not require beta energy, so you should be abusing this on a regular basis. Tip number 2 is manage your beta energy wisely. The second tip is to manage your beta energy wisely. Being intentional in your skills or beta energy usage is key rather than randomly using skills out of nowhere. It is worth noting that most of your follow-up attacks will require beta energy, so it is wise to monitor your current beta energy and assess if you can do or you can pull off multiple skills in conjunctions of follow-up attacks. To give you an example, like what I mentioned earlier, when an enemy is out of range, I usually pull off a shockwave skill, stun the target, gap close to the enemy, and pull off regular attacks and finishing it with a skill like a quadruplet. So that's already a times 4 beta energy, and each skill usually costs times 2 beta energy, so keep this in mind. Check the beta energy count and if you can pull off certain combos before firing away. And this also explains why beta energy generation builds will matter so much later on, but the basics of builds is a completely different topic. Tip number 3 is pick the best combo for you. As mentioned earlier, you can pull off a lot of slick and eye-whopping combos here. However, this is not your regular hack and slash game. It is a souls-like game, unfortunately, so button mashing will get you killed most of the time. I call it 70% souls-like game or 30% ARPG. So for starters, I will mostly be suggesting to stick around with the Incursion 4 combo. I find that this combo has a quick wind-up time compared to the others, perfect for beginners. You can mostly be safe by just pulling 3 squares and 1 triangle and not finishing the combo. Finish the combo by pressing another triangle if the enemy is down or you are sure that you will not be hit. As you master the game and learn how to manage or manipulate your DPS window, which I will be discussing in a minute, this is the time you learn another combo, since the most powerful ones are of course the longer ones. Tip number 4 is master your timings. Timing is everything in every Souls-like game. Especially Stellar Blade is following Sekiro's footsteps. To make this short, be always intentional in what you do. How many attacks you can pull off in a DPS window, how many attacks do you need to parry, counting enemy attacks before they stop and flinch, and more. Always wait for them to attack first and you will know how to counter them, and I call this baiting. Tip number 5 is master the flow of combat. As you adapt to the game's combat, you will notice a pattern or a flow, especially when fighting boss fights. Starting from what I suggested, baiting the enemy first to do its first attack, parrying its attack until it flinches, and then moving on to your actual DPS window. During this window time, you can pull off regular attacks along with skills to do major damage to your targets. And then you will soon know that your DPS window is done if the enemy is already in hyper armor. You will notice this easily as you master the fights, and when an enemy is on hyper armor, it does not stagger from your regular attacks and it will start pulling its own set of attacks, leading you back to the starting point of the cycle or flow, which is the parry stage again. Repeat until the enemy loses balance and punish them with retribution, and after the enemy recovers from this, just repeat the process and deplete its balance once again. Tip number 6 is don't rely on guns. Just like in Sekiro, I have a strong feeling that guns are just a bonus damage that you can pull off, so don't rely on it. However, this may change later on as we see stronger upgrades. Mastering the way of the sword and parries are the key here. Tip number 7 is take advantage of combat consumables. Although I don't use combat consumables, you can take advantage of them, and most of them can stun enemies and damage their balance and shields in the process. It's there and you have the option to use it. I tried my best to make this guide informative but concise at the same time, and as I have mentioned earlier, I will be doing a more advanced guide on release after I've seen all the things that the game offers. I hope you learned something from this guide, and if you want to know more about this game, watch my full impressions video here. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.